Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline. My guest this evening is Dr. Tilak Siyambalapitiya, who is a well-known energy specialist. He joins us actually from a place that's close to a lot of tourists' heart, which is from the resort city of Negombo, which is currently hosting a fair number of tourists for those who are interested in knowing whether Dr. Nandalal Veer Singh is happier these days with the inflow of dollars. But yes, Dr. Tilak Siyambalapitiya has come all the way from Negombo to be with us today. So thank you very much. Thank you for being on the program. Tell me very briefly, I know that today you didn't come on the on public transport, but because of the timing, you came in your car. But ordinarily, how does that journey, public transport from Negombo to here work?
Negombo to the city, Colombo, yes, or even southwards, right up to Moratuwa,
yeah,
is served by a train service.
Right.
A direct train service during office hours, which I very frequently take. It takes about 1 hour into Colombo and a further half an hour if you want to get to Bambalapitiya, Vellavath, Dehiwala. So the train service, I would not say super, but given the constraints that we have, I think it's much better than what it was several decades ago. So, say if I want to come from Negombo to Bambalapitiya, there are 4 trains in the morning, 4 options in the morning, and 3 options in the evening. So that's how it is. The service that is provided, and some of these trains have second class. So if you are willing to pay a bit more, you can actually go in a second class comfort.
I don't mean to sound elitist, but is there first class as well?
No, not on this.
Not on this line.
Not on these lines, but on most other lines.
There
are first class trains, and I suggest that you try the first class as well for us.
Yes, I'd like to do that.
It's very good.
I have come on the third class from the same station that you talk about, because I like trains.
Try the first class. It's much cheaper than going by car,
right,
and perhaps cheaper than going on a air conditioned
bus. Well, I must recommend the train first class journey. Been to Kandy and also have been to Kankasanture and Jaffna,
yes,
on the first class service. On one day they forgot to turn the ACs off, but we were frozen, but it worked.
Yeah, but then there is an attendant whom you should draw his attention
yes,
to,
I couldn't
and
find
he
him.
Can read. Yes, same problem
Yes.
I've had. So
now then, thank you. I just thought we'll break that in, because otherwise I'll have to wait weeks to get someone to explain to me how good or bad or ugly the public transport is. So as we've heard, it works. It just needs a bit of tweaking, like most things in Sri Lanka. Tell me about the energy problem. People keep talking about the energy problem. One minister said there'll be power cuts, another one said there'll be water shortages, and the third one said the farmers are going to have a tough time, agriculture. Is this politics, or is it actually true that we don't have enough capacity for what we are using in this country?
I think you hit the correct point, and you've given the answer to your own question. We do not have enough power generating capacity in this country to serve the customer demand reliably. Now, the fact
operative word is
reliably. You can have some capacity and provide some electricity, but if you have to say when the rains come we can give you electricity, that's not a good electric power system.
Can you imagine the people at MAS or Brandix or all these big apparel manufacturers, and the small ones as well? The lady in Silver Sands Road in Negombo who has a little production team as well. Do you think they can write it into the contract with their buyers and say that if there are rains and I have electricity, I will supply you on time?
Certainly they cannot. They cannot. It's a duty of the government as a matter of policy, and it's a duty of the electricity supplier as a matter of reliability to provide a reliable electricity supply at a regionally competitive price. Just because you've got everything wrong, you cannot raise the electricity prices to 50% more than what the competitors of our industries pay in other countries.
I thought you were going to say that because you got everything wrong, you can't just raise the taxes and think that everything will be all right.
Yes. So the situation you mentioned about the manufacturing industry,
Yes.
you mentioned some names as
Yes.
well. I feel very sad. I feel very sad that Sri Lanka's electricity prices to manufacturing industry is at least 50% more than the regional competitors of these countries, whom I believe are Bangladesh, India, Vietnam, perhaps Thailand and Indonesia. We are not competing with Singapore for manufacturing.
Yes.
Right? So Singapore's electricity prices are higher than Sri Lanka. Take my word, Sri Lanka's electricity price for manufacturing is only number 3 in the region.
Oh, really?
Above us is only Hong Kong and Singapore, with whom we are not competing for manufacturing.
So we are basically the highest from the countries that matter.
Yes, in South Asia we are the highest. Why? Is it because there was no planning? The planning has always been there. From 1980s, Sri Lanka has always had a 20-year plan, a rolling plan which is updated. So the problem is the plan is not allowed to be implemented. Take my word, not allowed to be implemented.
I'm absolutely gobsmacked. So why is it that the likes of the Amelines and the Omars and the Errols of this world, who have a lot of robust investment in this apparel industry, why are they still here? Why don't they just leave and go to and relocate in Bangladesh or in Laos or in Vietnam or in Thailand, where they might just find themselves in a better position?
Certainly, I'm also surprised, but maybe their love for the country and
perhaps
the
people, they're patriotic dudes, aren't they?
Yes, and the people and their capabilities, etc. But let me highlight one important point.
Yeah.
We define what is known as energy intensity of any manufacturing industry. Now,
Right.
what that means for us
Yeah.
is what share of your expenses goes for electricity.
Right.
Or let us say energy in general, which means electricity, oil, gas, biomass, all these different forms of energy cost, and what share of cost of your total cost goes for energy. Apparel industry, it never exceeds 15%, even with our high energy prices.
Okay.
So therefore, I would not expect an apparel industry to shut down just because of the electricity cost, but definitely they are in a highly competitive market. So even a 5% margin, loss of margin, may be a go or no go decision for them. So I have to balance my point on both of those. But I'm very concerned about manufacturing industries that are using local raw material such as rubber, clay for the ceramic industry, and a variety of other local raw material, add value and sell products to the international market. All of these, including glass, is a very energy intensive process. So there are certain industries, for example, cement. The cost of a bag of cement, if it is X, about 40% of X is energy.
Wow.
So if we sell electricity to a cement factory which is 50% more than their regional competitor, so sadly either they may not expand, and I'm happy that those industries are continuing to produce, but this is very unfair because they are not expanding, our industrial output is not increasing. Whatever the government says, when you look at the electricity statistics, it's very clear our manufacturing industry is not expanding.
Can these manufacturing industries that are energy intensive, can they have their own power? Can they bring their own?
For us, in a very limited manner, because small scale power generation, I'm talking about standalone reliable power generation. So if you talk to some industrialists, they will say, yes, we can. But what are the options they have? Either they have to use diesel and produce electricity, which costs about 65 to 70 rupees for a unit of electricity, which is still about 50% more than what they pay. or they already pay 50% more than what they should be paying.
Yeah.
So using diesel and saying that we got our electricity supply done is not on, because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
If companies want to go for renewable energy, they are still dependent on the grid. So companies do have large scale rooftop solar, etc., but they are dependent on the availability of the grid, because they have to produce and store in the grid, or perhaps produce in conjunction with the grid and use it only when they have the resource.
What's the state of the storage batteries industry now?
Battery technology is improving. It's much better and much cheaper, technologically smarter than what it was 10 years ago. But if you do the numbers, whatever the policymakers say, whatever the enthusiasts say, finally it's the cost that finally matters. So people talk about industries going off grid and saying that we have our rooftop solar, we have our batteries, it's much cheaper for us to do. But industries do their calculations very carefully, and none of them have gone for a huge battery bank and a solar park, because it is still too expensive. So we do expect the cost to come down and the battery supported renewables to be more economical in the future. But Sri Lanka cannot wait until the technological advancements happen in other countries to get our industry back on its feet and growing. So therefore we need to supply them with a reliable, competitively priced electricity immediately.
The multi-billion rupee question. For how many years? 74 years of independence. I think we had the first lot of emergency power, standby power, in 1995 or 1996. How come we are in this position today?
All right, you brought in very unpleasant memories to me. I was the Chief Engineer Planning of CEB in the run-up to the first purchasing of emergency power in 1995. So what happened? Was the planning not good? Were there any plans or no plans? Yes, there were plans. Plans were documented, updated every year, and me and my team interacted with all the other government agencies, and the plan goes after our analysis, it goes for approval by the board of directors of CEB, and then to the ministry, then to the government, finally to the finance ministry to be included in the investment plan. So what happened? From about 1980s, CEB has been planning to build a coal-fired power plant, and nobody would allow that to happen. So feasibility study in Trincomalee, feasibility study in Mathara, feasibility study in Noracholi, going round and round the country, and not getting done. So that's number one. But then an electricity supplier cannot just sit and say, oh, you did not allow me to do what I recommend, so therefore I cannot do anything about it. But then as the crisis was approaching, crisis of 1996 was approaching, we couldn't recommend anything else other than an oil burning power plant, and the location was to be Sapagaskanda. Recommendation was in 1992, and the recommendation was for immediate implementation, but even until the country entered the crisis in 1995, no decision has been made, because for us these are large investments. And
meaning large commissions?
You gave me the answer, because politicians as well as certain officials like to be the decision maker on who gets this contract.
So a little bit of ego as well,
yes,
apart from the commissions.
Now the end result is that the project does not get done, because there is not only one politician who is after this. There will be several politicians competing to be the decision maker. There will be several government officials competing to be the decision maker. They fight with each other. Finally, no decision is made. So we entered the 95 crisis, and the previous governments, there were similar problems before, from the 1970s, 80s. Previous governments just cut off power and then said, this is it. But they learned a new trade from 1995, that whenever a crisis comes in, there is another business. So the crisis came in because you were not allowing the decisions to be carried through for what was the best for the country. But then when the crisis arrives or crisis almost is there, then there's another business, emergency power business. So
when one door shuts, another one almost automatically opens. And let's go, Dr. Tilak Siyambalapitiya, for a quick break, take a peek at this evening's headline news, and then come back and discuss how on earth Sri Lanka ended up this so far down the well in terms of its energy requirements. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
It is essential to consider deregulation and privatization as alternatives, says President.
The apparel industry during the war. Nevertheless, today we can't have an economy dominated by the government, both in economic terms and also in terms of regulation.
Steps taken to limit specialist doctors from leaving the country.
මේ නියෝගය ප්‍රායෝගික යථාර්ථයක් බවට පත් කර ගැනීමේ ලකුණු අපි දකින්නේ නැහැ.
Mujibur reveals that attempts are being made to cover up the truth related to the 2019 Easter Sunday terror attacks. Chinese research ship to reach Sri Lanka on 25th October, confirms Navy. State Pharmaceutical Cooperation gets a new chairman.
Hi guys! See you at the Thomian Fun Fair on the 18th of August. We'll see you this Friday at the St. Thomas College ground for the Thomian Fun Fair. Let's have a lot of fun. See you.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And welcome back to Newsline. I'm in conversation with the energy specialist, Dr. Tilak Siyambalapitiya. Dr. Tilak, we are in this diabolical situation. You know, everything that this country needs to get out of this economic mess almost invariably finds its way towards, as you use the right word, reliable power supply. The hotels, as their rooms start filling up, they will need regular power. It's no fun for a guest to wake up in the middle of the night because his AC's gone off. You know, he won't come back to Sri Lanka. He might even cut his holiday short. Manufacturing is down and so on and so forth. And one would have thought that responsible politicians, having convinced the voting public and received their vote, would then have that responsibility on this shoulder, and on this side, this other shoulder, got ahead and implemented things. But it has not happened. How do we come out of all this thing?
All right, for us, as always, I'm hopeful that some politician, not one, but all of them together, will make the correct decisions and proceed further. Because the electricity industry, of course, energy is all these, but let's single out the electricity industry. I've recently done a calculation as to how much the economy has lost as a result of delaying power plant projects. Now, what happens when there is a delay? So, when there's a delay, as long as the rains are above average, the delay is not visible. When the rains go below average, then that becomes news to the politician. But for us, the planners, rainfall going below average is not news. For the Met department or for the irrigation department, the Mahaveli authority who manages these reservoirs, the fact that the rainfall will go below average once in several years is not news. They have all the data. The network has been planned to meet such requirements. But then when the power plants are not built at the correct time, owing to various reasons, and most frequently the fundamental reason is inability to make decisions on a bidding process for a new power plant. So the problem goes under the carpet when the rainfall is average or above average, and suddenly appears when the rainfall goes below average. So just to finish what I was saying, I did this calculation and realized since 1990, these project delays has caused a loss of about $17 billion to our economy.
17
billion to our economy. Now, how
That's a third of what we owe.
That's right. That's a third of what we owe. So literally, what have we done? We have struggled in a bidding process because this minister versus that minister and this minister, and this bidder catching another minister and another official, finally them fighting with each other as to who the contractor should be. Finally the president saying, no, cancelled, finish.
I've got a mate in somewhere else and I'll get him to
that's
do
it. Yes. Or then some people go in procession against a power plant, then the election comes in, one politician goes and promises that I will not build the power plant, the other politician also goes and promises that I will not build the power plant, the project is delayed or relocated. So what happens in the interim? When the crisis arrives, you listen to the news today, CB has hired already 40 megawatt of diesels and about to hire another 120 megawatt of diesel power plants. Where does this money come? Through borrowings. If not for diesel, we would have used coal or gas because we are using renewables quite a lot already. But hydros are down, we know. So therefore, still it would have been imported fuel at 1/3 the price of diesel. So it's imported, true. Renewable energy also, the equipment has to be imported. But then we have to make sure that our imported capital as well as the imported fuel is a minimum cost option, not the maximum cost option. So we borrowed $17 billion and pumped diesel to various emergency power plants, CEB's power plants, private power plants of whatever description, and finally said, oh, we are fine, no problem, and my government will not increase electricity prices. This is what we have been hearing for the last 3 decades, no? Right? The government will foot the bill. Now, we will hear that very, very shortly. A lot of diesel power plant is running. Yesterday, 40% of electricity in this country came from diesel power plants. Not even a country in the Middle East who produce diesel would use such a large share of electricity produced from diesel. So,
you know, while you were explaining all this, I just think to myself, and I must share that thought here, it is almost criminal when politicians receive huge majorities, 2/3 majorities in parliament, or near 2/3, and they squander that power by not delivering the essentials to the people. It's absolutely disgraceful. Because, from what you were saying, what you need is strong leadership. And our Constitution, written down as it is, provides for untrammeled powers to the President.
That's true.
And so since this executive presidency came to power, it is unforgivable, isn't it, for Sri Lanka to be let down like this?
Yes, I'm not going to talk politics.
No, I don't want to.
I will talk engineering and economics related to the power
sector. But you plan and you say, look, this is what we need.
Sure.
Otherwise, we're in trouble.
That's
they
right.
don't listen.
So just take an example now. You think that we are building renewable energy power plant at a pace? No, that is also not happening.
But why is that? What is the constraint?
The renewable energy, the constraint is in the process of selecting the relevant parties to build the power plants. All right? So, Sri Lanka had a very vibrant renewable energy industry in the form of mini hydro investments. 1996, private sector was allowed to invest on renewable energy and the mini hydros were the cheapest, so they picked them up. 2006, there was a policy change, a more attractive pricing formula. So right now we have some 210 mini hydros doing very well. Right? They are making a lot of money, but I am not unhappy about it because they are giving the renewable energy to the grid. Then 2006, pricing formula for wind and solar was also changed, and for biomass as well, again to be a lot more attractive. You know, our renewable energy industry is the best investment that anybody could do. Is there any investment anywhere in this world where the buyer says, I will buy all your product for 20 years at the following price. Even if I do not want, I will buy from you. And even if you do not sell, do not provide that product to me, which is electricity, I have no penalty on you. I will simply smile and go away. This is CEB. So that is the best agreement that you could have. But then, once the technologies are established, the government of 2015 made a very important decision that henceforth renewable energy will be procured to the grid on a competitive basis. Because don't forget, for us, renewable energy belongs to the Republic. That means to the people of this country. So therefore, the private sector is the temporary custodian to develop this renewable energy, to produce electricity, make their profits, but not to forget that they have to do it on a competitive manner. Their pricing has to be competitive. So, but then by about 2019, the competition process was stopped. And once the competition is stopped, even the little bit of bidding that was going on and delayed decision making stopped. So now it's a quarrel to surpass each other, to build power plants, and hardly anyone knows as to how parties are selected to build renewable energy power plants. So the only thing that is happening at a pace is a rooftop. But then that's very limited, and we need large quantities of renewable energy coming in, don't forget, at a competitive price. So that competition has also been stopped. So now if you succeed in getting a project, then you have a predefined price. So what I'm going to say is that the public is at a loss there, because the competition in supply is not there. So although we are talking a lot about power sector reforms to improve competition, etc., but what's happening on the ground is going against the spirit of competition of electricity supply. And finally, when everything falls through, like that has happened now, diesel comes to our rescue.
Again.
Sadly, yes.
Again.
Sadly.
And again. Well, so what hope for Sri Lanka in terms of energy?
I'm still hopeful that this government or some government will do the correct thing by following the plan.
Actually, this corruption business or vested interest or whatever we want to quote it is actually the bane of our society. It has held back professionals like you from getting your suggestions and your workings implemented.
Sure, I'm
Because
sure there are many.
You can only do so much, and you do it, and you say, well, you know, chaps, listen, this is what we need.
So if the government is keen and honest, what they have to do is to open the last approved plan.
Yeah.
And examine, all right, look at the plan, there has to be the following power plants ready by the following year. So to have a crash program to get those projects done on time. So that list of projects in the currently approved plan, I have reservations about the approved plan, but let's say the approved plan is the plan. So it has a gas terminal, it has several new gas-fired power plants, existing diesel power plants, many of them in Colombo, to be converted to operate on gas, which will bring the production cost to half of what it is today. And there are time schedules given there. Then there is a bunch of renewable energy projects.
Yeah.
So what the government has to do is to have an accelerated program, not allow anybody to interfere with those projects. The moment there is some social or some complaint, maybe relocated people, there will be court cases against these projects, and not to run away from court cases, but face the court cases. There could be environmental issues, and attend to them and resolve the problems.
Dr. Tilak Siyambalapitiya, thank you very much for being on Newsline. Thank you. And that's the way it was, depressing as it was this evening. But what to do, as they say over here in Sri Lanka. Take care, have a great evening, as much as you can. And God bless you all. It's now time for Primetime News.